Burnout can happen to elite athletes, CEOs, high performers in every sport and industry. But when it happens to dads, the issue is that it is far more damaging because it comes not just from work, but we bring it back into our home life. I've spent 20 years working with elite athletes, high performers, international rugby players, tennis players, CEOs, and high performing executives across the world in multiple industries. And here are the 9 things I see that burnt out people do. Point number 1 is that the external pressure is massive. What I mean by this is everybody is looking to you as a senior leader. Not only in your job or in your business, but also at home. Business dads tend to take all this pressure onto themselves. There obviously is an example that you need to be a leader and you need to be able to take this pressure on. The challenge comes that if it is constant and consistent all the time with no ability to recover from it, then that is where the issue comes. So with this point, the one thing that you need to do is you need to think about how can I reduce this pressure and step away from what is happening. Create some space and time in your day and in your diary to relieve this pressure. Whatever that looks like, breathing, walking, exercising, it doesn't really matter. But you have to have these small moments to allow you to set yourself, recompress or kind of figure out where you are and then move forward. The next thing that I've learned from business dads that are really close to burnout is that they are trying to do their best. Everybody is trying to do their best. Even though we have people that we think are trying to be manipulative or trying to kind of be argumentative, whatever that looks like, they are trying to do their best for what they believe will get them to where they're going to go. And business dads are no different. The challenge comes from is that they're trying to do their best in lots of different areas. And this is the challenge. So what you need to do is you need to step back and just have a bit of a think around, right, what am I looking to achieve and what can I actually achieve? Sometimes, unfortunately, we set our expectations so high that we can be everything, be an amazing runner, swimmer, athlete, dad, business leader. And what we have to understand is sometimes we get things wrong, and that is okay. The next one is that they always put themselves last. So they have a big long list of things to do, and ultimately they come at the bottom of it. And what I mean by that is their health, their mental health, their social needs, everything in around that. And the issue is that if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't become selfish in that regard, then you won't be able to perform in the others. There's a great book called Pay Yourself First. And this is the idea that in business, when you make some money, you should be the first person to be paid because in theory, you're the most important person. If you don't pay yourself, then ultimately you can't live. And if you can't live, then you can't continue to grow and develop the business. If you think of it now from a dad's perspective, if you are not healthy, if there are underlying issues, if you are so stressed that you are struggling to hold down relationships and your mood, all those types of different areas, you are not going to be able to perform at your best. So sometimes we need to look after ourselves first before we look after others. And that again is okay. This is one of the big ones, is that sleep is seen as a waste of time and for a wimps. And that we can get away with 5 hours a night during the course of the week, try and catch up a few hours at the weekends. That just doesn't work. If you are an elite athlete, you understand the process that we perform really hard. If I was your coach, I'd stress you to the limit and then allow you to recover so that we have this amazing cycle called the super compensation cycle, which basically means that we put some stress, there's an alarm response from the body because it doesn't really like it, and we allow that recover to come back a little bit stronger. Now, if you think about it, if you are not getting high quality, high quantity of sleep, all you are doing is you're just putting yourself into a hole that will not allow you to come back. Okay, and then more stress and more stress. So then the line is down, 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 boom, crash, burnout. Your body's saying, can't take it anymore. We need to do something about this. Whereas what we're ultimately looking for is that we get this stress, we have the response, we stress you again, we stress you again. So a step-by-step process. And that's what you need to be thinking about with regards to sleep. It is a critical performance factor as a dad and as a leader. The next is that there is a lack of focus. And what I mean by that is that there might be huge amounts of focus on the business and understanding, right, what we want this Q1 to be like, Q2, what does our profit and loss look like, who do we need to employ, what does our marketing look like, all these great feedback and numbers, and there's a specific step-by-step goal. But when we ask them about themselves, i.e. where do they see themselves in 5 years or 10 years, looking from a holistic point of view, not just business, but what type of dad do they want to be? What type of shape do they want to be? What does their health want to look like? Where do they want to be? What do they want to feel? What do they want to see? All these different questions. And I ask the business dads that I work with, and unfortunately, they don't give me very specific answers, i.e. elevator pitch, 30 seconds, this is what I want, bum, bum, bum. Now, if you don't have that, all the decisions that you make from a day-to-day point of view around that holistic performance become very difficult. I've spoke about this multiple times in previous videos around this idea of, does it make the boat go faster? Understanding where you want to go, and so you can ask yourself, right, if I do this today, is this pushing me forward to where I want to be? If the answer is no, pretty much you don't do it. If the answer is maybe, 9 times out of 10, you don't do it. Getting this focus around where you want to be and having a clear vision is one of the biggest factors that I see business dads that are burnt out not having. Take some time and get that done. The next one is, and I've heard it so many times when coaching business dads or speaking to senior leaders, and the response is, it'll be okay when. So it'll be okay when we sign this big deal, or it'll be okay when my kid finishes school, or it'll be okay when I've got past these difficult 6, 8, 9 months, whatever it looks like. And the issue is that it is never okay, because we're all trying to do our best, we're all trying to perform, and all that happens is we just keep going, we keep going, we keep going. And we have to understand, to that vision piece, there are goals, and we need to reach those goals and understand where we are. By you saying it'll be okay when, you are not addressing the root cause of the problem. You are misleading yourself to think, hey ho, it'll be okay when we do this, X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, that does not happen. So if you catch yourself saying it, I want you to think, well, hold on a second. What do I need to be thinking instead? Or what's the root cause of these issues? And that's a great starting point. The next thing is they don't celebrate wins. Now, I've worked in professional sports for 10, 12 years. And obviously there were huge opportunities to celebrate. You know, win a game, etc., win championships, get promoted, all that stuff. The dads I work with have a tendency not to celebrate at all because they think that it's lazy, or they think that they're kind of pushing the boat out too much. Now, I'm not suggesting that, you know, every time something good happens, you go celebrate, you go buy something, go out, or do whatever you want to do, what you feel is your job or your need to express that celebration. But what I am saying is that it's okay to celebrate wins. Okay, because if you don't and you just stay on this flat line all the time, what happens is that unfortunately life can become quite boring. You know, you sign that big client, but you think to yourself, oh, I don't want to celebrate too much in case this happens or this happens or this happens. Now, In professional sports, the challenge comes is that you sometimes don't have opportunities to celebrate because you're always working towards end of the season, promotion, cups, etc., etc. So one thing that I've learned personally is that I need to celebrate my wins more often. And even the small things, okay? So getting into the gym or going for a run or being 100% engaged with my children when they come back from school. Those are things that if you start to celebrate those wins, you start to get the momentum and it starts to push you more. And that is key. The next one is that they forget who they are outside of work. They are so emotionally attached to their work, to their title, whether that's CEO, founder, managing director, owner, whatever it looks like. They just become so absorbed that that is them. Now, one of the big things that I do with people when I start working with them is that we draw down their pillars. So pretty much if you think there's you on the top and we have these pillars that hold them up. So one might be, or one is, work. Okay, whether that's the business or your title or what you're doing. The next might be that, you're a partner. So you're married or whatever that looks like. The next is that you are a dad, so you have children, so you're a father, so that's another responsibility. Normally there's one other or two others. So it might be that you play sports or you're a musician or you have a big hobby or a big passion of yours. Now, if work takes over all the other things and you lose that work, you completely forget your identity of who you are. And that can be a challenge. I've seen it time and time again in professional sports. I'm a rugby player. I have to be focused on this. Career finishes, maybe by injury or just that they're too old or whatever that looks like. And then they look around and they're lost because that was their identity. So what you have to understand is that if you're trying to be a high performer, it's about you, okay? It's not about what you do, okay? It's not about your work. That is an important part of your life. It is not your life. And think about that. The last one, and probably the most important one, and one that I am super guilty of, especially when I was working in professional sports, is that they don't have fun. I needed to have more fun. But for me, I was quite scared that if I had fun, I wouldn't look as if I was taking my job seriously. And then head coach comes along, you're messing around, why isn't that not happening? All those different aspects. But if you think about it, and there's a great quote from Ricky Gervais, and I'll paraphrase this, but it's the idea that his dad told him that life is like a roller coaster. Okay, so there's going to be ups, so then there's going to be downs. But the most important aspect is that you only get to go on it once. So sometimes we need to escape. Sometimes we need to do something for ourselves. Sometimes we need to have some fun. And that can be on our own, that can be in a group of friends, that can be with our family, that can be with our children, that can even be at work. Because fun is a massive stress reliever, a huge stress reliever. Second of all, it is a huge energy giver. You know, if you've had an experience where you've kind of enjoyed yourself and had some fun, you finish that experience and you've got loads of energy to crack on. For me, if I go on a good run or a bike ride or I play some sports or I do something I really enjoy, I feel good. And I don't just feel good, during it. I feel good for the next hour, 2, 3, maybe even days. And that's really important for you to think about. So if you're a business dad and you're struggling, go have some fun. It's not being lazy. It's not being kind of against the rules of that hustle culture, grind hard. It is key to being a human being. So they're the big 9 things that I've seen from the business dads that I've worked with over the last 3 years or so. If you're interested and you want to think, right, okay, yeah, there's some of me, there's some I do. One thing that is really beneficial is to audit where you are. So there's a performance test in the description. Okay, click on the link, takes about 3 or 4 minutes. And there's lots of areas where you can start to assess, right, what does my life look like? And from that, you'll get a report and it will say, these are the things that you need to. So when we go back to one of the points where I'm saying, right, focus, it will give you clear areas for you to go and work on. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm always here for anything, just reach out, drop some comments below the video, and have a great day.